The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Good morning. Welcome to FRC Media. The preliminary election in Fall River is coming up on September 19th, and we're trying to speak to as many candidates that are on the ballot as possible between now and then to hopefully give you some informed choices when you head to the polls. We're focusing on the mayor's race today, and I'm pleased to be joined by the incumbent two-term mayor of the City of Fall River, Mayor Paul Coogan, who is seeking his third term. Mayor, nice to see you again. How are you? In person. We've talked so many times virtually and see each other at press conferences. It's good to do it one-on-one. I appreciate it.
I still know where the studio is, and thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it as well. 2 years ago, when you ran for your second term, you were coming off the first 2 years in office dealing with COVID and things that went along with it. This past term tends to be more of a traditional mayoral term. What have you learned in the last 2 years that were different maybe from the first two?
Well, the first two seemed like they were mostly crisis mode. We were trying to fix things and repair things that we didn't even know what they were. We were learning on the go, working with the state and federal delegation to get things done. At the same time, keeping the city functioning, whether it was police, fire, EMS, infrastructure, trash, all the things we did in that environment. It was difficult, but we worked our way through it and we made sure we stayed on top of people and tried to keep city services flowing. As we headed into the second term, obviously things changed around because COVID waned and we started to have the ARPA money coming in. So then it was, how do we use this discretionary money to make the City of Fall River a better place to live? And in the second term, we've had a much stronger relationship with the City Council. So our partners on the council have done a lot to make the city go forward also. That's one of the hallmarks of my administration. We work very well with people, whether it's the council, the state delegation, or the gubernatorial administration. Even though it changed and we miss Baker and Polito, it's been pretty seamless with Healy and Driscoll, and they're still here to work on anything that'll help the City of Fall River. But with that being said, there's a number of big projects going on, from the pier to Route 79 to our schools, and we're just going to keep the city going forward.
And I will get to just about all of those in the next few moments or so. But let me ask you about the relationship with the City Council. 2 years ago, when you ran against now former Councilor Cliff Ponte, there appeared to be a lot more acrimony, a lot more stress between the two branches of government. It appears to be a little more cordial. I mean, you mentioned that you have good relationship with a number of councilors. I guess expound upon that.
I think what happened was, obviously, Councilor Ponte had his eye on another seat, and he was at the same time trying to run the council at the same time he was campaigning, and that's very, very difficult to do, to try to not mix the two up. I don't know if it's even realistic, but with Council President Camara and Vice President Linda Pereira, things have gone much smoother. And it hasn't always gone my way, but we have regular meetings with a number of them that will come in before there's an agenda. I mean, with an agenda meeting before a meeting, and we'll talk about what we're looking for and what they're looking for and what we can do to improve the City of Fall River. It's definitely a more open and transparent form of City Council, between the meetings and what goes on down there, and I see it moving along pretty well.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier the influx of American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA money, that the city has received. I believe totally close to like $80 million around that area. What's left? And I know in the coming year, whoever is mayor is going to make some decisions, because I believe it all has to be dedicated by the end of 24. Right.
So what's left, I want to say, is somewhere in the mid-20s, 25 million, somewhere around there. We have a number of big projects, Lewiston Street, that we want to put some significant funds into that, because that is not a nice place to work, not a nice setup for the public. It's not a very friendly environment. We want something much better down there, and we have plans in the works for that. We have a number of park upgrades we're going to be working on. So we have a home for all that money, but at the same time, we never threw it out willy-nilly and said, oh good, we got this money, let it go. We were always very thoughtful in how it was going to be spent. We had another meeting the other day of the ARPA committee deciding which programs or projects have merit, and then we kick it around with the group and decide what we want to do with the money going forward. But we're going to use that money to help the residents of the city of Fall River to the best of our ability, whether it's police cars, whether it's capital improvements, whether it's streets and highways. When they change the funding over to make it more CDA-like, we're going to be able to use it on a bunch of different stuff.
Yeah, and that just happened recently,
Just
right?
happened. We got the guidance last week. What happened was, again, I ended up calling Senator Markey, and he and I had a conversation. I said, Ed, you guys approved this change in December. You were supposed to put out the final report in 60 days. He goes, we haven't done that? I said, no. And then that week we got it. So, I mean, it was another little notch for the city of Fall River where we triggered a report being released for all 50 states. And it was the same as the lost revenue. We stuck our head in the fight, and we stuck our head in getting that clarified. So those are two good things that the city of Fall River is on the map for.
You mentioned the DCM facility on Lewiston Street. That has been a need for quite some time. The last city council meeting, there was talk about maybe using ARPA funds for the armory. That project has been ongoing for a while. And I know that City Administrator Seth Aiken was saying, well, there's priorities, and Lewiston Street is one of those. I know the council went back to your office and say, hey, look at the armory again for maybe city use. Are you going to do that before the next meeting?
Not at this time. I don't think that's practical. I think with the number of streets in Fall River that need work, with Lewiston Street, with the projects we have, whether it is streets, sidewalk, parks, that will have a much greater impact on a bigger majority of our residents. As I said from the day I started, my job is to make Fall River a better place to live. So when I look at these projects, sure, some of them are tremendously worthy, but they may only affect a certain amount of the population. If I can bring more people benefits from the ARPA money, that will be my focus. If there's a way to make it significant for people across the board, and I do still have my eyes on the old Durfee Auditorium as a place where I won't have to put in that much money, but at the same time we make it something where a number of people can benefit from it.
And that could be the event space.
Correct. It could be something for our veterans, for our tourism programs. There's a bunch of stuff we can put in there. Matter of fact, then the National Guard is going to be using it as a practice site right now. So there's things going on. We just got to stay on focus.
General city finances, you've been able to use funding from ARPA for lost revenue. I believe this current fiscal year was the last year you can do that, or can you do it one more fiscal?
No, another year. Yeah.
One more fiscal year. Do you plan on doing that, and how will it impact? You were able to use some funds that would help offset the cost of the new Durfee. We've got Diamond coming on. This year it's beginning, but it's really going to hit next year. Do you still have plans to maybe help with that in terms of using some of that ARPA money to help offset?
Well, we do have I think it's a little over $3 million left in lost revenue. Okay. But at the same time, with Diamond coming on, that's a $6 million a year hit for 25 or 30 years. I'm not sure. Obviously, everybody knows I wanted to have a vote of the community, and the council, in their wisdom, decided that it should just be part of the regular budget. So I'll be looking for ideas and guidance from them on how they think we should fund it. Obviously, they have the ability to cut things in the budget. That's their role, but I don't know what their thoughts are. I'm sure we'll be getting down to brass tacks on that shortly. Again, I think we'll have a large surplus going forward. There are some things we can do, and of course we'll be looking for state and federal help on that bill, and some ideas we have on how to bring some money into the city to help.
You've also used quite a bit of the ARPA funding for water and sewer projects. And even though water and sewer rates continue to go up, mainly because of inflation,
right.
The cost of supplies has gone up tremendously since COVID. Do people realize that without that help, that rates could have even been higher?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's what they have to look at. We're fixing water mains, and there was a little bit of a disagreement at the beginning about how to use the money. Our focus was always, if we fix the water main, let's fix the street. Let's make sure it's passable, not just patched like some of the the gas line patches are. We trying to do the whole street. At the same time, these are fixes that would all be on the ratepayers if we hadn't done them, because they're coming. You look at what we're putting into 79. Right there is a perfect example. We got a MassWorks grant, we got a federal earmark, and again, all that's saving the cost for the taxpayers. When you look at something like 79, you have to put water, sewer. Those pipes are all going in now. If people drive by, they can see the pipes going in. Who was going to do that? The city was going to do that, because obviously the water revenue comes to the city. We're responsible for the sewerage, not the state, which is just clearing the land. So there were things going on all the time that we were always looking to not let rates explode like they very well could have.
Yeah. Looking at public schools, talk about an influx of funding. The school department for right now, I think the third year in a row, has really seen an increase in funding through the Student Opportunity Act. But as we know, money doesn't cure all the ills that may happen in a school department. Back to finances, that increase in funding also impacts the city's contribution to what's called net school spending. How do you look at approaching that, as more money will continue to come in?
Right.
Over the next
Well,
few
again, the
years?
schools are our partners.
Right.
The state regulations indicate that, as you said, that we pay our share of those funds, and it's between 15 and 20%, so we will do that. But at the same time, the schools do pick up a number of expenses for us. We work with them closely on any of our programs, whether it's the fields at Durfee, the new school down on the South Main Street. There's things we're doing to make the schools better. But that's all the brick and mortar type things. The challenges we face in the school is keeping good, competent teachers in front of the kids, improving our scores, improving our attendance, and moving the city forward on the dial. We have work to do. I just came back from an orientation for all the new teachers at Durfee, and it's amazing to see how many people are there. There's 200 or 300 there. I was fortunate enough to be able to speak to them, but I told them that we need them in the city of Fall River, have a sense of humor, work hard, and love the kids, and we'll get through this. We need people that are committed to helping our students improve their scores, come to school every day, and develop a work ethic that'll cover them forever.
How important will be the expansion of preschool?
Very important.
Because we've got the new building coming up in the far south end,
Correct.
former Atlantis Charter School.
That's been a focus of the entire school committee. I can say that honestly. They've all been on, let's get pre-K expansion. We're looking at the old stone school on Globe Street also as a place where we may be putting some additional classroom space. But that school in the south end, people have to understand what a tremendous benefit that is to the city of Fall River. We're getting a 500-person school for somewhere around $7.5 million when all's said and done. And it's a very, very good project. The schools are able to lease it, and at the end of the term, we'll be able to buy it for the city for $1. It's just going to be win-win the whole way around, and we're going to have classroom space for their children to get the pre-K going, and then we can look at how to go K to 8 the whole way up. A two-unit school, which will be around 500 kids, I'm hearing.
But that'll be down the line. A lot of work to get it done. Really?
Not that far down the line. Yeah, maybe a year.
Oh, good.
So we'll see how it goes.
In terms of, you mentioned, scores. It's been an issue in Fall River for many years. COVID didn't help. The learning loss that has come about because of it. I know that you, as the chair of the school committee, I know Superintendent Ponce talks about it all the time. What kind of role can a mayor play? I mean, you're the chair of the school committee, but there's also a leader there and staff there that you can just encourage, I guess, right?
Absolutely. You support them and you tell them that what we're up against. I had an extensive conversation with the governor the other day. It's my contention, ever since I worked at Durfee, that the MCAS, there's a move now to go to a ballot to eliminate the MCAS test, which is a common scoring rubric for the state. I always think that that's not the best way to go. The best way to go may be to shorten that test. I mean, that thing is 14, 16 hours now. People have to understand that. That throws these schools into upheaval. When I was a kid, you could get into college on an SAT test, which was 3 hours on a Saturday morning.
Hours,
yeah. So why couldn't we do something like that with math and English? Give them a basic test on a Saturday morning, make sure they can read and write and do math and get the fundamentals down, and then let them go. This testing for that long, again, when I worked at Durfee, it was just total upheaval when we did the test. They had to have a special place in the cafeteria. They had to carry their food with them. They couldn't take the book. It was a challenge like you've never seen, but we got through it. And again, I think that the test is just a bit long. I'm not against testing to find out where the kids are. I just think that's a long one.
Yeah. I want to shift now to public safety. You know, the entire country, I guess since George Floyd incident, police are viewed differently, specifically in urban areas like a city like Fall River and larger communities. I know there's been an issue for quite some time with police staffing. I know there's been incentives given to new recruits, and I know that Chief Garvin is making headway with those new recruits. It's got to be something that must frustrate you almost daily, because there's, Fall River has its crime like other cities, similar size, New Bedford, Brockton, but being able to fill that need, it seems like years ago there was so many recruits. I mean, I remember talking to the chief and he said, early we had too many recruits, not enough money. Now they've got money, but not enough recruits.
Right. I would say that sums it up. Obviously, we're trying to incentivize our people so they don't have to pay for the training anymore. We've given them body cams, which I think is a tremendous protector for our police. Allows people to see exactly what's going on and know that they're all being recorded. There are a number of good things going on with the Fall River Police Department. I think it's all positive. Obviously, we've had some hiccups with police officers that weren't doing what they were supposed to do, and hopefully they are now off onto something else. We don't wish bad on them, but they don't belong working for the Fall River PD. Yeah. And I think that if the recruit classes I've seen, which I've been fortunate enough to talk to, I think we have a good core of people, just not enough of them. We need more, and we're trying to bring them in to get it up to a full complement. And I think we will. We're making headway. I think our retirements are starting to slow. That was a big bump class that we lost for the last couple of years. So hopefully we'll catch up and we'll be fine. I trust the guys. I think they do a nice thing. I wanted to make sure that when we did the contract that they were paid on a scale that would make them competitive with neighboring communities. Again, it was that same cycle. We train them, they go to Seekonk. We train them, they go to Rehoboth. Now we're in a position where we train them and hopefully we can keep them.
I know the contract for patrolman was just negotiated earlier this year, I believe, but is there a way that maybe cities like a Fall River may need to go a little bit higher? Because again, if someone's making X amount in Fall River and they can get the same amount in a local community, with not as much potential crime, right, they're going to make that move.
Well, some do. And some also like the services and the professional development and the equipment we have in the city of Fall River. And those are the ones we're looking for, the ones that are going to make a commitment to our residents in our city and stay with us. We are always looking for ways to make Fall River a better place to work for EMS, our fire, police, DCM, anybody. Our schools, we want people to want to work for the city of Fall River, so there's got to be ways to do it. And we tried to do it with the last contract, and we'll see what the next one looks like.
On the fire side, it looks like staffing is at a good place.
Fire's a little different. Obviously, they have a list right now of 400 or 500 people that are waiting to be firemen. We don't have that on the police side, and that's something we have to stress to people. It's a regular, good old economic model, supply and demand, and that's what happens. You have people that want to be firemen, but right now the police department isn't looked at the same. It's starting to get better. As I said, we have a good crew in Fall River on our police side, and they do good work, so we're going to try to strengthen them.
Again, getting back to the pandemic and the inflation that has followed since then, affordability has been an issue in Fall River. Specifically around housing. I know that your administration, working with Mike Dion and community development, are trying to find those opportunities. What more can you do as mayor to try to help create more affordable housing?
Well, a creative use of some of that CDA money that we do with Mike. We look at houses all the time. As I said 100 times, I'm not a fan of the big 100-unit high-rises. I don't mind 6 units here, 5 there, 4 there, that we can make more affordable. And we're looking at that. We were even looking at that with the Armory, making sure there was an affordability component. At the same time, though, Fall River is under the same restrictions the rest of the state is. You must have 10% of your housing that could be considered affordable. Well, I think with all of our vouchers and our programs, we're somewhere around 28%. Our neighboring communities have not met the 10% threshold. So we want to see, the reason that law was written is so that everybody would be on a level playing field. And that's what we would like to see, all of our neighbors at 10%, and then we'll rise and flow together. But right now, Fall River does work extremely hard to accommodate people. Rents are going up across the country. People have to understand that, and Fall River is still below other communities. I think I was reading a story the other day that Quincy was at $2,200 for a one-bedroom apartment. I mean, we're around 17, which is still extremely high and more than a lot of people can afford, but we're not there yet.
City still has a problem with homelessness as well. I know you've done working with the First Step In, and now the Tomeo Center is an overflow shelter on Bay Street. I know you're out quite often to many of the encampments that you see more this time of year because the weather is warm out there. And I know that you've got the street outreach team that is new since your administration started to make those connections for substance abuse, mental health issues, but there's still barriers, and a lot of it is just personal, right? They don't want to seek the help.
Well, again, when you get into a summer, you're fighting a couple of things. The weather's nice, and as you said, they'd rather be outside. They don't want to come in. We are working right now with the First Step In to get more beds available right now. The Tomeo Center, we have our homeless work program. The Tomeo Center coordinates that. When they get done work for the day, they get lunch down there. But people have to understand, these people are an extreme challenge. You have many, many mental health issues. You have many, many substance abuse issues. There are things we're working on all the time to improve the life of these individuals. And some of them do not belong on the streets. But we're living in a society that is not favoring the old model of institutionalization or something. I had this conversation with the governor also. Some people need to get help in an inpatient basis. They just don't do well coming and going. I ran into a young lady the other day at the bottom of Stop and Shop on Rodman Street, and she was in real distress. It was a Sunday afternoon about 3 o'clock. I pulled over with my wife. I said, listen, we can help you, blah, blah, blah. But she was not ready right then because she was not in a good way. But she did understand me, and she knew the team we had, and she told us she'd meet us the next morning at McDonald's. We told her we'd buy her breakfast, but she never showed. Yeah. So, I mean, at the time, it was good. You felt good. You thought you were trying to help somebody, but trying to get them to take that first step is sometimes the real challenge, believe me.
Are you interested in exploring integrating these, lack of a better phrase, healthcare professionals in with police? Because there was talk about that, because police have to deal with some of this, and they don't.
Well, we have a policeman on our outreach team. Okay. We have a Lieutenant Burt is a member of our outreach team. So when we go into these camps, Lieutenant Burt is along with us with a mental health counselor, maybe with 2 outreach workers. We go in as a team, so we can if there's something like charges pending or something, we have access to all that. At the same time, if there's crime being committed, where people are robbing people or violence or drug dealing, I have told the chief and anyone that wants to listen, lock those people up as fast as you can. The others, some of the what we call street homeless that are just addicted or mentally ill, those are tough lockups. But if someone's doing something against the law, they should lock them up as fast as they can.
Yeah. I want to get into some quality of life. I know you've been extremely proud of your work in a number of projects to improve the roads, sidewalks. It's funny, I think we talked about this 2 years ago when people complain about the condition of streets, and then when you're there fixing the streets, they're complaining that you're doing work. Correct. But that's all part of the progress, right?
It is. And we were on the corner the other day doing some campaigning, and a woman pulled up in the car and yelled at me, "Stop fixing the streets." And I said to myself, boy, have we gone full circle. Because I never heard that before, and I've been in office 3 times, but 3 years, but we're definitely going to stay on focus, fixing streets, sidewalks, parks. We're looking at plans all the time because those fixes will last a decade. I'm hoping they last a decade, and we can make the city a more attractive, better place to live. A lot of streets are getting done up here right now, but if you go to the bottom of Mount Hope Avenue, there's 5 or 6 streets in that little cluster down there that we're fixing. We're fixing Ridge Street at the top of St. Anne's. These are streets that are in very, very bad shape, and they've been neglected, and if I could do anything as I consider myself a blue-collar mayor. I want to get into the work. I want to make sure we're improving the city. And that's how I travel, and that's what I live for. If we improve something and makes the city more livable, I'm 100% in.
The Thomas Norton City Pier opened in the past year. A lot of events happening in the summer and will continue. Have you been amazed with the turnout? I know, like yoga, there seems like 100 people a night there every Monday night during the summer.
They told me there was 100 people down there, so I had to go down. I had to see this for myself, and it is really great. I mean, it's something, again, the last campaign, knowing what we could do with that pier. We're not allowed to build buildings on it. We're not allowed to dig into the ground on it. So making it a recreational area with maximum use for the residents. We're now putting the docks in on the side. This is going to be a great place for the city of Fall River. Everybody that sees it loves it. It's something we're doing. The RDA still owns it, but at the same time in partnership with the city. So if you look at the events down there, and this week, for as a perfect example, on the 27th, the Narrows is having a big free concert there. People should come down, food trucks, get a dose of the city pier. It'd be great. Yeah.
Plus the other activities that your office, in partnership with Viva Fall River and CD Recreation and other organizations, have sponsored a lot of events for city residents.
There's things going on all the time. The food truck festivals, Friday nights, summer concerts in the park. We have a number of events. People truly appreciate it. There's a more livability to the city. The other Saturday was the backpack drive at Kennedy Park. I bet you there was 1,500 people there. It was something to see, and it's those kind of things which draw people out of their apartments into the parks, into the places where we have the fun events, and that's what we want. We want people to feel comfortable going out.
Is it a little more difficult to try to continue that through the cold weather months?
Much harder. Yeah. Much harder. Yeah. But we got a couple of special ideas coming up this year, which we think will make it a little better. There's going to be some good events going on in the winter. Not as many, but some things we hope we can get people out to.
Good. I want to wrap up with talking about economic development in general. You mentioned the waterfront, the reconstruction of Route 79, ongoing. It's still going to be a few years before that is complete. I know that the redevelopment authority is working with your office on a master plan. That's going to take some time because you want community input on what's going to happen down there. Right. But what is your vision of what could potentially be there? Again, people won't see it for some time, but there's a lot of potential. Then, of course, the train coming in later this year.
Well, you look at what we could do down there. If we have an area that's livable, walkable, where there's restaurants, stores, housing, parking, maybe some recreation, and we run it right down that whole waterfront, what could that be? That could be so much. I mean, walk to the city pier, put your canoe in, paddle around the Taunton River, go down to the Bicentennial Park or Heritage Park or take a walk. We got new restaurants opening up down near the Narrows now. I mean, those are the kind of things that make a city walkable and livable and give you a little bit of a character, and that's what we're looking for. This 79 project is really going to be big, and everybody I talk to is just floored at how fast the highway came down and what it looks like now. And again, we're talking a decade. We're not talking next week. With that being said, you look at what's going on in our industrial park, that is full. We have very little land left up there. Jobs are coming in. They're building 2 new buildings right now, actually 3, and there's a lot of job opportunities there also. So, with job opportunities come the ability to pay for an apartment, to go grocery shopping, to go to a restaurant, and that's what fuels economic development. If Fall River can carve out a niche where it can keep its people living here and shopping here and eating here, we're going to be fine.
What's the latest with plans for a master plan in the Flint?
That's moving along very well. We have one of our partners in government, Aaron Tetralt's got permission now to build 16 units at his building. We're rebidding 3 or 4 storefronts going right down the strip. I think we sold a big piece of property there that's always been like a headache. And there's a lot going on the Flint. Again, Senator Rodrick is able to help us with some funding there from the state. And I can't stress enough the partnership with the legislature and our Congressman Jake and our 2 senators. They are keenly interested in Fall River, and they're on my speed dial. I can call them, and they always answer it. They always call me back, Keith. So I have no complaints about people that want to help us, especially redevelop an area like the Flint. I think, you know, there's more housing going in right now between the curtain lofts and the curtain factory and the curtain lofts. And there's also, we've sold that other building right next to Trossel's Park, which we're in the process of closing that up now. So there's a lot going on, and we're very proud of what's going on in the Flint. A lot of work to do, not content, but we're going in the right direction.
Mayor Coogan, thank you for joining me as always. Good luck on the 19th. And I'm sure we'll talk between now and November.
I'll be around.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us here in FRC Media. I'm Keith Tebow, and please make a point to vote on Tuesday, September 19th.